Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Choosing Legal Tech for Your Law Office, presented by Jeff Bennion. My name is Stephanie Phelan. I'm a marketing manager at MyCase, and I will be your host today. First, I'd like to give you a few tips about participating on GoToWebinar. The webinar control panel is on the right-hand side of your screen. This is where you can control audio, chat with me, and submit questions. Please use the questions pane to submit your questions at any time during the webinar. I'll be collecting those questions and saving them to ask Jeff at the end of his presentation, but don't wait until the very end to shoot those over to me. Also, please note that these slides and the recording will be available by end of day tomorrow on the MyCase blog, and it will also be emailed to all of the registrants. When you close your webinar today, a 5-question survey will pop up. All you have to do is answer those questions, and you'll be entered to win a $100 Apple gift card. You have a high chance of winning, so it's definitely worth it. If you'd like to join the conversation on Twitter, the hashtag to use is #ChooseLegalTech. This webinar has been approved by the Wyoming State Bar and the Florida Bar for 1 hour of general CLE credit. If you are a Florida Bar member, note course number 1604026N to self-report your CLE. I will also send this information out in the GoToWebinar chat pane. Today's webinar is hosted by MyCase, so before we jump into things, I'd like to give you a quick overview. MyCase is web-based law practice management software that takes care of your daily practice requirements for calendaring, contact management, document management and templates, time and billing, client communications, custom workflows, and more in one solution at a very affordable price. MyCase is priced for solo and small firms at just $39 a month per attorney and $29 a month per paralegal or support staff. We also offer MyCase websites for our customers. The cost to set up and build your website is only $500, and then there's a $50 per month maintenance fee. We use a modern, beautiful, professional design that's built for your firm. The websites contain social media and blog integration, and best of all, a client portal which is completely integrated with your MyCase software. So now you and your customers can log into MyCase directly from your website. Next up is payments. Are you accepting payments from your clients online yet? You really should be, and it's easier than ever. MyCase recently announced the addition of a built-in credit card payments feature to our payments service. MyCase customers can now accept online payments from clients using both credit cards and checking accounts, also known as eCheck or ACH payments, seamlessly through their MyCase account, no third-party integrations required. And last but not least, we enjoy hosting educational events for professionals in the legal industry, and that's why we're all here today. So let me move on and tell you a little bit more about our presenter. Jeff Bennion is a San Diego native. He earned his dual BA degrees in political science, international relations, and Russian and Soviet studies at UC San Diego in 2004. Jeff later attended the University of San Diego School of Law while working in San Diego's largest law firm. Jeff has helped his clients recover millions of dollars since opening his law practice in 2011 and has won virtually every legal award available. He was recognized as a rising star attorney by both Super Lawyers magazine and the San Diego Attorney Journal. A lot of people and organizations look to Jeff for advice. Jeff serves as a member of the board of directors for consumer attorneys in San Diego. He also serves on the executive committee for the State Bar of California's section on legal technology and practice management. Jeff is also a columnist for the legal news website Above the Law. Before Jeff started with online legal sites, he was known for his hilarious articles on the website cracked.com, getting 30 to 40 million page views to his posts. Those stories range from Batman and his lack of a bat cave in the Dark Knight to an instance of a jury consulting a Ouija board for a verdict. Check out those stories on cracked.com and you'll get a sense for Jeff's humor. Today, Jeff joins us to present on a more serious topic of choosing legal technology for your law office. Jeff, thank you for being here today. I am going to pass the mic over to you now.
Thank you very much. So I just want to thank you for letting me have this opportunity to do this presentation. And I wanted to start my presentation with a story. I started out my legal career working for one of the largest law firms in Southern California. And we represented some of the largest insurance companies in the country. And we had basically unlimited resources. We had a whole bunch of attorneys, probably a lot more than we needed. We had a lot of support staff. We billed a lot, and the clients knew it, and they were fine with it because our job to just win. And what would happen a lot of the time is, obviously, we would use our ability to be a big bully to take down and kind of out-hustle and outman, outgun smaller firms. So, you know, if we send out 40 deposition subpoenas, that's something our office can handle, but not a lot of people could. We had one situation where there was a plaintiff's attorney who was a solo practitioner, and he was running circles around us, and it was incredibly frustrating. And we had a team meeting about it, and we were saying, how is it that this guy who practices out of his house is a solo practitioner, and he's able to get so much more done than all of us put together? And he's out hustling us, where usually we're the bully, and now we're being bullied by some solo practitioner plaintiff's attorney who works out of his house. And so we looked at kind of what he was doing, and he just had better tools and was better organized than us. And it's really not that hard to be better organized than a large law firm because they're so slow moving and so many things. But that was early on in my legal career, and from that point on, I decided, you know, I want to be like that guy. I want to be the guy that has the tools and is able to use them and be organized, so that I can be a bulldog in my cases. And so that, and it's not just about being a bulldog; it's about being able to effectively represent your clients. And then also, you know, it definitely gives you an advantage and an edge when you're in trial or when things are in a crunch. If things are totally organized the way you need them to be, it just gives you such a huge advantage. So the first slide that I want to talk about here is just to give you a general overview about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to choose the right hardware for your law firm, how to choose the right software for your law firm, and then a couple of related concerns such as cybersecurity and issues such as that. So the first question is, you know, if you are either upgrading your office hardware or if you're starting a new solo practice, I get a lot of attorneys that contact me. A lot of law firms, large law firms, are downsizing, and so a lot of people for the first time, you know, they might be a 20-year attorney, and for the first time now they have to choose which computer they're going to buy or make decisions about office space. So regardless of where you are, large firms, small firms, solo, anywhere in between, I think that these slides will be helpful. So the first question is, when you're choosing a new computer, do you want to get a laptop or a desktop? And traditionally, attorneys, people who work at offices have desktop computers, and that's because desktops have always just been a little bit more powerful than laptops. They're about probably 5 years ago, there was a switch though where we just reached a point in technology where you can get a nice medium range laptop and you can do anything that you need to do in a law office. And so there are advantages to choosing a laptop versus a desktop. So, you know, now this is a choice that we need to make, whereas before laptops simply didn't have the power that we needed. Now we're seeing that there are some laptops that are a lot more powerful than some of the desktops. I personally, my work computer is a tablet. It's a Microsoft Surface Pro. That's the main computer that I use to do all my work on. Everyone else in my office has, old Dells, and nothing against Dell, but they have older computers, and my computer is by far the fastest, most powerful computer in my office. So if you're choosing to get a new computer, the decision between laptop, desktop is something we need to ask. So the factors that you want to weigh in on that are, first of all, how mobile do you need to be? If you're not in a situation where you need to unplug and take your stuff with you, if you don't work from home at all, then this is not an issue. I take my computer with me to do depositions. I take my computer with me to court. I had a court appearance this morning. I had my computer with me with all of my files. I take my computer with me and occasionally work from home. So if you need to be mobile at all, I would suggest getting a laptop. The next question is, how powerful does your processing does your computer need to be processing wise? Again, unless you're going to be doing some crazy 3D rendering, or unless you're working on a case that involves playing first-person shooter games or something like that, you really don't need a really powerful computer. If people ask me all the time, what kind of computer should I get? What's my price range here? And basically, if you are just going to be accessing the internet, using email, and using a couple of regular programs that we use, like say QuickBooks or anything like that, Adobe Acrobat, Microsoft Excel, you really don't need a very fancy computer. So I would say, as a general rule, if you're picking a new laptop and you're not really picky about what you need, just look for generally a computer that costs anywhere around $400 to $500, a laptop computer. Desktop computers probably about the same. Now, the more you spend, the more bells and whistles you're going to get. But generally, for what attorneys do and in the law office, you just don't need all the fancy bells and whistles. And some of it is just more geared towards video heavy and 3D rendering heavy and computer games, which is not necessarily what we do. Well, not what we're supposed to do, I guess. And then the next issue is, how many screens do you need? So what I have is I have my Surface Pro, and then I have it hooked up to external monitors. If you have a desktop computer, you have to buy a separate monitor for that. If you have a laptop computer on your desk and a separate monitor next to it, or if you have a desktop computer with two monitors, it just makes such a difference. Once you try the multiple monitors, it's so difficult to go back. If you're doing things like responding to a discovery meet and confer letter or something, or if you're responding to interrogatories or something, you can have the interrogatories on one screen and then typing up your responses on the other screen without having to flip back and forth between those documents. And then the next thing I want to talk about here real quick was choosing a good tablet. Now, this again is not a question that attorneys really had to deal with a few years ago, but more and more attorneys are using tablet computers. And I mean iPads or Android tablets. So there are actually a lot of options for choosing a tablet. I use tablets in my practice, and it's a really convenient way to go somewhere when I'm on the train, when I am in court and I'm waiting somewhere. I'll go to trial and I'll have a tablet with me that has my whole case on it, and it's a really convenient way, really portable way to bring a lot of information with you. So a lot of attorneys are using the iPad, And that's a good, that's definitely a good device, but that's not the only device. And so what you need to do is when you're deciding which tablet to buy for your practice, um, there are a couple of things you want to look at. First of all, what apps do you think you're going to be using? Because there's Microsoft Word, there's Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Adobe readers on virtually all of the operating systems for tablets. So take a look and see what apps you want to be using. The iPad does have a lot more lawyer-oriented apps, such as jury selection apps, trial presentation apps. So take a look and see what you're going to be using it for. If you're going to be using your tablet for picking a jury, probably want to get an iPad. If you're going to be using it for just reviewing documents on the go, you're fine with any iPad or any tablet. And then the processing power as well. One of the things that I don't have on here is price, but you can buy a tablet anywhere from $49 up to $1,000. And if you're going to be just using it to review documents on the go, you're fine with a really cheap low-end one. If you need it to do more substantive things, such as pick a jury or present your evidence at trial, you're going to want to go with a higher-end one. But so just keep in mind, what you're actually going to be using it for, and you certainly don't need to buy, like a $700 iPad if you're just going to be using it to check your email. Now I want to talk briefly about choosing peripherals for your office. If you're in a small office and you don't use a lot of paper, if you don't make a lot of copies, you might want to look at not getting a copy machine. We had a situation a few years ago where we had a court ruling where we needed to get a lot of work done really fast, and so we opened up a couple of extra offices, and we hired a bunch of people, and we needed to print out some stuff, and so we were looking at options of getting a copy machine, and we determined that it would actually be a lot cheaper for us to just every month buy a new printer, and you could even just buy a new printer and throw it in the garbage every month than it would be to buy a copy machine. Obviously, we didn't throw the printers in the garbage every month, but I mean, if we are going to be, if we're going to be printing these documents, just not 5,000 documents a month, or even 1,000 documents a month, take a look at whether it makes sense for you to not get a copy machine, but just get a really good laser printer. And you want to get a laser printer as opposed to an inkjet printer for your office, because the laser printer, first of all, it prints out much faster, and second of all, it also prints out much crisper. So I know, at least where I am in San Diego, we have local rules that they won't accept documents that are printed on an inkjet printer. And so you have to get a laser printer. You can get a really good laser printer for about $150. I have one that I bought about maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I still have it. I still use it almost every day, and it's not that expensive. And so look at these printers that cost multifunction printers that cost about in the $150, $200 range. I got mine. It was a Canon. They make excellent printers, and I've been really happy with it. I've bought, I think, 3 or 4 of them since for different locations, having different offices. The next thing you want to look at is whether you need it to print color, because printing color is obviously it's a lot more expensive to have a color printer. If you have a color printer, depending on the printer, it's going to take up a lot more room because it needs to have 4 or 5 toner cartridges in it as opposed to just one. So it's going to be a much bigger device. It's going to be more expensive, and you're going to need to replace those black toner cartridges a lot more often than you would with just a regular printer. So what I do, I don't really have a need to print a lot of color documents. So I have a black and white multifunction printer, and then when I occasionally do need to print color, it's just so much easier for me to either send it to a copy service or just go to FedEx or Kinko's or someplace that has a color copy machine. But again, depending on what your practice is, if you work in family law or something, and you have the need to all the time print pictures out and attach them to your pleadings, take a look at that and see how much, if it would be a better solution for you to get a color multifunction printer as opposed to a copy machine. And a multifunction printer, what that means is usually that it's a printer, a copy machine, a fax machine, and a scanner all in one. So they serve a lot of different purposes, very compact devices, and very economical. One of the other things I have on here is a desktop scanner. So if you're thinking about switching over to paperless or trying to be more paperless, a desktop scanner is so important, because what it is, it's a little scanner, and it's about the size of a shoebox, and it's got a document feeder in it, so you can fit about 100 documents at a time, and it scans them really fast. And the advantage to that is, let's say I've got a deposition transcript that I need to scan, and let's say it's 300 pages, and I go to the copy machine and I'm standing there and I'm scanning it. I scan the first batch, and then I scan the second batch, and then I scan the third batch. I'm standing in front of the copy machine now for like 5 or 10 minutes, not able to get any other work done, and then I got to wait for the documents to be scanned and sent to me via email, or however my network is set up for that. If you have a desktop scanner, you just put it in and you can work while you're doing that. And it's an extremely convenient way, especially if you want to go paperless. And they run anywhere from between $200 to $300. So again, if you don't have a large copy machine and you do have to regularly scan documents, or if you're trying to go paperless and organize documents as they come in, it would make a lot of sense to get a desktop scanner. It'll give you the really powerful scanning capabilities that a large copy machine would have, but the size of a shoebox, and it stays right there on your desk. I have a little section on here about projectors. I use projectors all the time. What I do, I use them for mediations, settlement conferences. I have portable battery-powered projectors. I put these in here real quick. I know not everyone uses projectors, but if you are going to go to trial, one of the things that I want to say is a lot of the companies that rent this equipment, they charge so much for it, and you really don't need to. I just recently bought a brand new trial projector, and it was $600, and it was, right here I say, you should have 3,000 lumens. Mine was 3,000 lumens. It was full HD, 1080p resolution, and it was like $600. And opposing counsel had a projector that was not as good as mine, and they were going to rent it from someone for $150 a week. And so, I mean, that's like that's like $40 a day, because we're in trial 4 days a week. I mean, that's more than if I wanted to rent like a mid-sized sedan. They're going to rent this projector to me that costs $600. So, I mean, after like 2 or 3 weeks, the projector pays for itself. So if you're going to go to trial and you want some of that equipment, I would suggest investing in it yourself, and look for 3,000 lumens and a good resolution. Okay, fax machines. I have a policy in my firm that I've developed. I just don't represent clients that only communicate via fax. I just found it to be a problem. If someone tells me, I don't know how to scan, I don't know how to email, I only have a fax machine, I wish them well. Now I realize that some industries that's a problem. It's been represented to me, I don't know if this is true or not, but that fax machines, sending things via fax is HIPAA compliant, and sending things via email is not HIPAA compliant. That doesn't make any sense to me, but I've heard that that's one of the justifications that people have for communicating via fax. If you do need a fax number, and a way to send and receive faxes, a much better solution is to look into electronic fax. And the way that works is you have a document, you scan it, and you scan the document and you email it to a fax number, and then they get it printed out on their fax machine. And then when you get an incoming fax, it comes into your email as a scanned document. So there's no more standing by the fax machine, typing in the number, pressing send, waiting for it to go, and then standing around waiting for the fax confirmation sheet, or later whether the fax was sent or received becomes an issue and you have to find that fax confirmation sheet. With these eFax services, the fax confirmation sheet is also emailed to you as a PDF. Some of the big eFax providers are, there's a company called eFax, there's another one called, I think, Nextiva. I had a Ring Central account for a long time. They provide eFax services. It's just so much more convenient than a regular fax machine. Okay, so now we're going to move on to an issue talking about how we store our documents. And I wanted to have a poll here. So the first question here is, do you know your State Bar's opinion on using the cloud?
Okay,
and I'll
great.
give you guys a few seconds to answer that.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So if everyone can please go ahead and select your answers there. I am going to go ahead and close the polls. Okay, and the results are in so fast. 22% said yes, they know the State Bar's opinion, and so definitely our majority, 78% said no, they do not. Is that about what you were
All right, let's look
expecting?
At the, yeah, that's actually probably pretty high. Let's move on to this next question here. Do you know the requirements that your State Bar places on lawyers using the cloud?
Okay, great. And again, please go ahead and select your answers now. Give it a few more seconds, and I'll close the poll. Okay, and our results. Do you know the requirements that your State Bar places on lawyers using the cloud? 18% said yes, so even lower there, and 82% said no. This is an interesting poll.
All right, next poll question. And I'll go ahead and spoil it for you. There are not every state has a requirement or an opinion on using the cloud. About half of them do, and they list a number of requirements. Every state that does says that you should use reasonable care in using the cloud. So my question is, what does reasonable care mean regarding selecting a cloud service provider?
Okay, great.
And we've got three options here.
Yep. Go ahead and read those options.
Ensure that the data is stored within the jurisdiction of the United States. Conduct periodic audits of the storage provider's policies for data loss. Or use a password and two-factor authentication to secure your files.
Okay, great. And I see everyone's votes are coming in. Please go ahead and wrap up your voting, and I'll close the polls. Okay, and share our results. Okay, so 13% said that reasonable care would mean ensuring the data is stored within the U.S. 22% say that conduct audits of storage providers' policies for data loss, but then definitely the majority would be 65% and using a password and two-factor authentication to secure files.
All right, let me go to this next slide here, and this is a map of all the states that are in blue. Those are states that have where the State Bar has issued an opinion on the use of cloud technology, and then there's a link here, and this link has a summary of each one of those opinions, and I think also a link to those opinions. So going back to the questions that I asked, what do you need to do? And the answer is no one knows. It's a really interesting. They have these really detailed opinions, and for example, California, it says that you can attorneys are allowed to use the cloud, and using the cloud just means storing your information on off-site servers that belong to someone else. So you can use the cloud if you use reasonable care. You can also use the cloud if it's an emergency. So I'm just trying to envision when it would be an emergency where you need to upload documents to the cloud stat, or when you're in a situation you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. If I don't upload these documents to the cloud, my client's going to get convicted or something. But that language is in there, and I have no idea what that means. I think it's Ohio. Their opinion says that you do need to conduct these regular audits of the cloud service provider, and that would include things like checking in with them to see how your data is doing. But then the next factor that they have says that you don't need to check in with them to see how your data is doing. So basically, they have all these opinions that say you need to use reasonable care, but don't really explain what reasonable care means. But that is completely beside the point, because when you're storing your documents, your question, the main question in your mind, should not be what is the minimum thing that I can do to avoid being sanctioned by the bar. The question in your mind is, what is the most that I can do to avoid losing my reputation, losing my clients, and being forced to pay restitution for my clients for my own sloppiness. So I've just got a couple of tips here. First is I want to talk about what we should do if you even want to use the cloud, and what your options are. So first question here is it allowable for attorneys across the United States? It is allowable. Should you use the cloud? Absolutely. I am a huge proponent of storing your documents in the cloud. And every time I say that, people say, well, you shouldn't use Dropbox because Dropbox is insecure, or you shouldn't use Google Drive because Google Drive, if you read the terms and conditions, it says that they own your documents once you put them in there. There's actually a New York State bar ethics opinion that says that it is specifically allowable to use Google Drive. I personally, I use Microsoft OneDrive, and I use a combination of Dropbox as well. A lot of these companies, they offer, if you do store your documents in any cloud service provider, don't use a free service. Use something that you have to pay for. They have a lot more options available to you to secure your documents if you do upgrade and pay whatever nominal fee it is a month to store your documents. And actually, MyCase, part of their services, they do have unlimited cloud storage. So that's an excellent option also. So the benefits of using cloud storage is, first of all, it's not just about having anywhere access to your documents. The benefit to me is more having the backups to my documents. So if I have something and I accidentally delete it, I can undelete it. If I have something and I accidentally saved over the version, I can just log in and go back to whatever version I had 2 weeks ago of a document. And so it's a combination of anywhere access, anytime access to my documents, and it's also that backup and that redundancy. So there are a lot of times where, for example, like earlier this morning, I was in court and someone was asking me, I was testifying as a witness about something, and about a case that I had worked on, and someone was asking me about a document, and I didn't have the document with me, but since it's on the cloud, I was able to access it from my phone and answer the question that they had. So you do have anywhere access, anytime access to all of your stuff, from a tablet, from a phone, from your computer, from home. And then, if my computer gets destroyed, it's no problem backing up that information and restoring it. So the benefits of on-site storage, though, I've got a lot of friends who are old school and don't want to put stuff on the cloud. Um, and the funny thing is, these people, they use online banking. If you use online banking, your bank information is in the cloud. If you have a credit card, your credit card information is on the cloud. If you are a member of the state bar, your state bar records are stored in the cloud. Virtually every aspect of everything that we do is stored in the cloud somehow. So I'm more concerned with someone stealing my banking information than I am with someone logging in and looking at my calendar entries for when I have depositions and whatnot with my email that's stored on the cloud. So you don't need to be so paranoid, I would say, about stuff on the cloud, because most of our stuff, most of our very confidential stuff, even medical records, if you go to Kaiser or something, all of your medical records and reports stored on the cloud. Now, there was a news report a little while ago about a law office, and someone broke into their office, stole all their computers. If that happened and your documents are stored locally, you lose everything. If your documents are stored on the cloud, some services even allow you to remote wipe your stuff if it's been stolen or lost. But if you do have a loss, a theft, or anything like that, an earthquake or some apocalyptic event, it's really easy to restore your stuff from the cloud. One time I was working at an office, and they didn't have anything stored electronically. It was all stored in large hallways of filing shelves, and the pipe above burst and leaked water on all of our case documents, and we actually had to fly all those documents out to Texas to have them flash frozen, and then you break the ice off of it, and then the documents are mostly restored. But there's no place that you can put your files that is 100% safe, and the cloud is probably one of your safest options. Let me skip ahead here to talk about cybersecurity. Following up on what I talked about before with reasonable care, you do want to use reasonable care in what you do. So here's some tips on things that you can do. And I'll just say, most of the time, the problems with accessing your documents online don't have anything to do with your cloud service provider. It has to do with you. You are 99% of the time the weak link in the situation. So, imagine breaking into a bank vault, and you can either bring dynamite and go through the safe door, or there's a ventilation shaft that's human size, and you can access it with a ladder, and you can climb in that way. And so that's how people get into our confidential information, through weak links in the chain, such as attorneys not choosing to put passwords, or not doing their passwords right. One of the key things that you can do is two-factor authentication, and what that does is you enter in your password, and then whenever you log in from a new computer, you need to also then, it prompts you to enter in a code that's sent to your cell phone. So I've got a little screenshot right here. Google offers that. Most cloud service providers have two-step verification, and so you log in, and then if anyone tries, say some hacker from China hacks my password, well, he can't get in unless he also has my cell phone. And there's a small percentage of hackers around the world that can hack my Gmail password. There's a much smaller subset of those that can hack my password and have my cell phone. And so it virtually eliminates a lot of the issues with hacked passwords. The other thing is, don't use overly complicated passwords. I was recently doing a software training session with some members of the federal government, and they had their laptops here, and they've got, as you can imagine, just so many things and security protocols in their computers. And one of the things they have to have is just passwords that have at least 3 Greek letters or something, and it was just every single one of them had their passwords written down on a post-it note on their computer, because there's just no way they can remember this password, and that completely defeats the point of a password. So don't use an overly complicated password that you can't remember and have to write down. Use something that something you can remember, so that you don't have to write it down. And then also, if you have like, say you have in your internet browser, say you have saved passwords for your to log into your bank, and your browser saves internet passwords, well, then you also need to lock your laptop. So if your laptop gets stolen, like let's say I steal your laptop and you don't have a password on it, well, now it doesn't matter if you've got two-factor authentication. It doesn't matter if you've taken a lot of precautions and you call the company every day to ask them if they have had any break-ins or hacks or anything. If I take your laptop, I mean, that's the keys to your universe. So I can log in if you have saved passwords and do all that stuff. I can't do that, though, if you lock your laptop. And then also, the thing you need to realize is if you have any app from your phone, like if you access your work email from your phone, if you access your cloud storage documents from your phone, make sure your phone is also password protected. If you lose your phone, again, that's your key to the universe, and you can access your email, you can access your cloud stored documents. Make sure that that is all password protected. And then some of the apps also have it set so that when you open up that app, it prompts you for a password to get into that app. So even in the phone, you can't get into the app without a password. So keep in mind that the weak link here is probably you. So find out all the ways that you have access to your documents, and then look at ways to limit outside access to that. And another thing I want to talk about is Wi-Fi, and it's something that's often overlooked. So if you're in your office, if you have an on-site storage server and you access that through the network, well, people who have access to your network, they might be able to get access to that storage server. And so one of the common things that people overlook is, they'll have Wi-Fi access, and then someone comes to your office for a deposition, opposing counsel, and they say, what's your Wi-Fi password? You give it to them. Well, I don't know if they would access your documents, but they certainly would be able to if they wanted to. Likewise, if your office has network outlets, local area network outlets in your conference rooms or something, so someone plugs into the wall and they get hardwired access, make sure that they don't have access to your network. I've seen that happen a couple times where people go into, like, say, a court reporter's office or something, and there's a network outlet, and they plug into it, and now all of a sudden they have access to the network, the hardwired network. And then also, if you have remote access, if people are able to access your storage servers via Wi-Fi, if it's on the network, keep in mind that if I wanted to, if I had your password, I don't even need to be in your office. I could pull up to your office at 1 o'clock in the morning and park out in front, and I could access Wi-Fi from my laptop, and I could download your documents. And don't worry, I'm not going to do that. But if you've got disgruntled employees, think about that situation. So just keep that in mind, where these weak points are in saving your passwords, and then also in Wi-Fi. All right, I wanted to zip through some of these slides here. Don't know if I'm going to be able to get to all of them, but I did want to make the PowerPoint presentation kind of over-inclusive, and then if anyone does have any questions about anything that we don't get to, feel free to email me afterwards. But I just want to talk about some fundamentals, some things that you definitely should have in your office. I read a document when I went out on my own. There was some publication put out by the ABA, and it said if you don't have a technology budget, you should make a technology budget, at least one that gives you enough money to buy Adobe Acrobat. It's the core document to everything that I do. All my documents, I'm mostly paperless in my office. Adobe Acrobat lets me annotate documents so I can highlight them, I can make notes on documents, review documents, organize my documents for trial, I can bait stamp my documents, I can run OCR, which is optical character recognition, which basically takes a stack of medical records or something and turns it text searchable, except for things that were handwritten by doctors. It basically is a fantastic tool. It lets me organize and review my documents. There's a new feature, a relatively new feature in Adobe Acrobat that also lets you edit documents. So if you have, I have a lot of people that say, well, I'm going to send it to you as a PDF because I don't want you to edit it. Well, that's fine. I can just pull it up in Adobe, though, and just press Edit Document. And the screenshot that I've got right here, this is from a scanned thing, and it said type or print your name here. And so I edited the document and deleted from this court form where it said print your name, and I put change text right here. And the tricky thing that it does when it edits text, even in scanned documents, is it doesn't put like a clean typewritten version of it. It looks to see what other, like I've got a CHANGED. It looks to see what other C's, what other H's, what other A's look like on that scanned document to make it look like it was part of the original before it was scanned. So a lot of times, I had a situation where I was filing something with the court and I realized I had a typo. I had 2015 instead of 2016. And I needed to change it real quick. So I just go into Adobe, edit that scanned document, already had my signature on it, already had all the attachments, and I could have just reprinted it out, re-signed it, re-scanned it, but just went into Adobe and made that change. You can also do digital signatures, which is just hugely important. We're seeing a lot more digital signature technology. Adobe Acrobat has that built in. There are a couple of other companies that offer digital signatures, but it's so incredibly convenient. I was in court the other day, and on one of my cases, someone emails me and says, I need you to sign this stipulation to continue trial. And I got the document. I was able to read it on my phone, but I wasn't anywhere where I could print, and even if I was somewhere where I could print, I certainly wasn't anywhere where I could scan it back in. But I needed to sign this document right away. So I just saw it on my phone. I got Adobe on my phone with electronic signature capabilities, pulled it out, signed it real quick with my finger, and sent that signed stipulation back to opposing counsel in like 3 minutes. And that would have taken me, I would have had to drive back to my office, drive back to where I was. It's just so disruptive. And I was able to meet the deadline to get it filed in time. I know we're running short on time here, but I just want to talk real quick about email. I think email is super, super important. One of the things I want to talk about is if you are using an at AOL or at Netscape, or I was recently working with someone who had an at Prodigy.net, and I think that's like the oldest of all of them. Even Gmail, you might want to look into upgrading to a custom domain, and the reason why is it gives a different image to your customers. Let's move ahead here, and I want to ask this poll question right here. Do you believe that using an at AOL email address where it gives a negative impression to potential clients?
Okay, great. So I've launched that poll. If everyone can go ahead and enter your responses, please. Okay, looks like majority has voted. I'll close the poll. Okay, wow. 84% said yes, AOL email address gives a negative impression, and 16% said
All right.
no.
Okay, well, I certainly have my opinions about it, but I wanted to share with you also, if you just Google using AOL email for business, there are a lot of articles written by a lot of people who also have opinions about it. And sometimes it's not really something we think about. It's just, oh, that's my email address. That's what I use, and I'm old school, and I haven't, I don't want to switch email addresses, and that's what everyone knows. And that's fine, but you need to keep in mind that some of the newer generation might look at an @AOL.com email address and be turned off by that. And one of the attorneys I do a lot of work with, he has an @AOL.com email address, and we have a website together. We've gone to a number of website developers, and every single one of them has told him the first thing they need to do is he needs to switch his @AOL.com. So if you do have an @AOL.com or anything like that, @Yahoo or Gmail, whatever, what you can do is get a custom email address. So Jeff@lawfirm.com, and you can have it set up so that when people send you emails to your @AOL.com business emails, you can set it so that you can choose which email address you respond to. So if people send it to your bestlawyer@AOL.com, you can set it to respond from your Jeff@lawyer.com email address. And then after you start doing that for a little while, people will update their address books, and it also at least gives you the option of having that custom email address. How are we doing for time?
You can go a few more minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk real quick about some of the options that we have for document creation. There's Office 365, which is the Office Suite option, which lets you pay between $6 and $8 a month to get full Office versions or full desktop versions of Microsoft Word, Outlook, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint. Also, Google Apps has some online documents or an online option that lets you bundle things like file storage and online document creation. And then I also have this category here on Word versus WordPerfect. So bundling in the debate of what software you should use. I've worked in offices where we use WordPerfect. The problem that we have with that is I know that a lot of lawyers love WordPerfect, and there are very hot debates all the time about what's the best software. The problem that we had, the reason why we had to make the switch was because we would prepare a draft document and we would email it to co-counsel, or we would email a stipulation to opposing counsel, or we had a document that we drafted and we needed to send a copy of it to the insurance carrier, or we needed to send a copy of it to the client. And they just can't open the WordPerfect documents. And then when you do open it in Microsoft Word, the formatting on it is all messed up. So it just became way too problematic for us to interface with the outside world. So if you're going to choose one or the other, for that reason alone, I would choose Microsoft Office and Microsoft Word. There's also, Word has a more robust mobile version of its apps. So if you're going to get an iPad or something, for example, and say you are on the road or you're on the go, you have a document, someone emails it to you, you need to make a few quick changes. If you've got the Microsoft Word app on your iPad or on your tablet or even on your phone, it's going to be much easier if you edit that as opposed to the WordPerfect document. So just keep in mind, to what extent are you going to be sharing these documents externally? To what extent are you going to need to access them on your tablets? If you're not going to be doing any of those things and you die-hard love WordPerfect, go ahead and stick with WordPerfect. But for most people, I would recommend, if they're going to choose one or the other, stick with the one that most people use. Let me just skip ahead real quick and talk about upgrading. We recently, a year ago, saw an upgrade in operating systems from Windows 8 to Windows 7. ILTA, which is the International Legal Technology Association, they do a survey every year, and they determine, and one of the questions they ask is, what operating system are you using? And only like 1% were using Windows 8. A lot of them were using Windows 7. Windows 7 is old enough now that it's not being fully supported by Microsoft, and there's a big push to get people to upgrade to Windows 10. So the question is that right for you? And if it is, when should you do it? And if it's not, how can you avoid it? One of the things I recommend is don't upgrade your software, whether it's your operating system or anything like that, right away. One of the things that you can do is, say you have you know, an HP computer and it's hooked up to a Canon printer model, whatever, and a desktop scanner, or a network copy machine or something. Google, you know, Windows 10 troubleshooting Canon printer model, whatever, and see if other people are having issues with upgrading with the things that you have, or, you know, Windows 10 upgrade Microsoft Word or something. So do a Google search first to make sure that other people aren't having that issue, because Microsoft will report like, oh yeah, you know, it works great with everything. No, you know, you'll run the compatibility report that says you should be able to upgrade no problem, but you know, there'll be 4,000 people that post on Microsoft's help forum that says, I upgraded and the report said it worked, but now I can't connect to my printer. So just do a quick Google search and make sure that all those things that you have are able to be compatible with whatever you're upgrading to. Upgrading early definitely gives you a lot of benefits. Microsoft, in particular, with their Office 365, roll out tons of new upgrades all the time. They've got a really neat website that shows what they've got in development, what they're currently rolling out, and they're constantly improving their Office software. So if you're on a budget, I would say your must-haves would be get a custom email domain, a laptop. Again, doesn't have to be that expensive. Adobe Acrobat, you can get that for $15 a month. Office 365, which gives you all your word processing tools and all that stuff, for $8 a month. And then if you wanted to upgrade from that, multiple monitors, desktop scanner, and get a great tablet like an iPad, or, you know, an Android tablet or something. It's just so convenient to be able to have all your information on the go. All right, so that's it. If anyone has any questions, I know we just have a few minutes, but my contact information is there also if anyone has any questions offline.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Those were some really great tips. I was hanging on to every one of them. For those of you who have to leave us now, please take note of 3 things. When you close your webinar, a 5-question survey will pop up. All it takes is answering these questions, and you're entered to win the $100 Apple gift card, so definitely worth it. Also, if you're a Florida Bar member, I chatted the course number, but again, it is 1604026N. That's what you need to self-report your CLE. Also, lastly, you'll receive an email tomorrow with a link to the blog where you'll find these slides, the webinar recording, and the Apple gift card winner. And we did have some fantastic questions come through, Jeff. I'll throw out the first one. What do you do about security regarding hardware repair sources? How do you know who to trust?
I always go through referrals on that, and we've got a fantastic listserv in San Diego with attorneys that I trust. You want to make sure that you're dealing with a company that, you know, look to see if they are Better Business Bureau certified. Look to see how long they've been in the community. You know, don't just hire someone off Craigslist who's going to come in and fix all your stuff. Definitely vet them, and I would get referrals from other people. But if you can't get referrals from people, look to see how long they've been in the community, and generally do some internet research on them to see what the reputation is.
Okay, great. And I think we just have time for this one last question. What about Dropbox? Why do people say it's not so secure?
The problem that people have with Dropbox is Dropbox used to have some issues. There was actually an issue that happened a few years ago back in early Dropbox stages where they had a security meltdown, and you could log into anybody's Dropbox as long as you had their email address. So you didn't need any passwords to get into Dropbox one time for like 24 hours. So if I knew your email address and you're opposing counsel and I knew you used Dropbox, I could log in and download all your stuff. That was a long time ago. Um, all cloud security companies go through constant updates. But Dropbox now has an option where if you upgrade to the, it's like $8 a month or something like that, you have so many more security options for securing your documents and password protecting things and encrypting them and doing a whole bunch of other security features. Dropbox also, since they had that security meltdown, they now have implemented two-factor authentication and also put a bunch of other security protocols in place to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Okay, got it. Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry, but we are out of time. I had a lot of questions come in at the last minute. You are free to reach out to Jeff. You can also reach out to me, and I can get some answers for you. So, Jeff, thank you so much for presenting
Thank
today. It
you.
was really wonderful, and thanks to everyone who joined us. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.